Hey, what's going on, guys? Ben Brewster here, treadathletics.com. Today I wanted to just do a quick video and touch on a cue that we'll use for some of our guys when they're struggling to locate their fastball, specifically when they're struggling to locate it side to side. So again, I'll be the first to admit that there's no one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to training command, velocity, anything like that. But at the same time, it's pretty common for guys to be struggling with command. So I would definitely encourage you to give this a try. We've seen a lot of success with just a slight shift in the focal point and with what the focus is for pitchers when they're struggling with location. So here's the cue that we'll use. And it's very simple, and I'll go through and kind of explain why it's so powerful. That cue is wherever the catcher is set up, blow it through the center of the catcher. So it doesn't mean wherever the catcher's glove is, you're trying to hit a pinpoint spot in his glove. It doesn't mean try to hit the catcher's left kneecap. It doesn't mean try to perfectly place that pitch 2 inches off the plate. Wherever the catcher is set up, blow it through the center of the catcher. One way to kind of conceptualize this cue is imagine that there was no plate. Imagine that the catcher didn't have a glove. It's just this large body located somewhere 60 feet, 6 inches away, and your goal is to knock him down. And so, again, he's gonna set up inside sometimes, middle sometimes, outside sometimes. It's a consistent delivery every single time, wherever he's set up, to blow it through the center of the catcher. So this seems to kind of fly in the face of the common pitching teach, which is to aim small, miss small. And again, I'll be the first to admit that that can work for some pitchers. I do know some pitchers where if you tell them to aim small, miss small, you ask them about their mental approach, they'll say, yeah, I am trying to hit like a quarter-sized spot, and they'll get really pissed at themselves if they miss that spot. And they're able to do that and still perform with, good enough stuff to play at the level that they're playing. However, for a lot of pitchers, that approach, that fine focus approach, where you're aiming for this super, super tiny area, maybe it's wherever the catcher puts his glove, you're trying to hit this very small location, or you're trying to hit that very sliver of the edge of the plate, it doesn't work. I'm a pitcher like that. I can think back to my own story and experience with this. There was one summer, I think my junior summer, where I kind of got into that. And there were all sorts of, I would place these little shapes in the zone. I was throwing to a net, but I'd have these little tiny shapes, different parts of the strike zone, and I was trying to throw to these different little points in the zone. That really didn't work for me that well. I actually noticed I threw less strikes. 100% of my mental focus and effort was placed on trying to hit these very pinpoint locations. My stuff played down a lot. That's one of the kind of issues with this. I was throwing only 85, 87 in bullpens at the time, versus making that adjustment, making the switch that fall. I was throwing 90, 92 in bullpens. And so for some people, that really fine focus doesn't work. And so what you call a soft focus, you can think of it almost like a quarterback. When a quarterback's reading the field, deciding where to throw the ball, they're not specifically focused on any one thing. They're able to see the entire scene in front of them. That's kind of the idea of throwing to the center of the catcher's body, giving yourself a lot of room to work with, versus trying to throw to a super small spot. It's also kind of the phenomenon why a lot of pitchers like to throw to bigger catchers. It feels like you're throwing to a bigger target than throwing to a 150-pound catcher in high school. It feels like you're throwing to a super small target, and that actually does have an impact on your conviction throwing your pitches if you have that added confidence just by changing the focal point. I'll go ahead and link a video below of Clayton Kershaw where he gives some insight into where his focus is when he's pitching. And again, he basically just says that in the back of his mind, he has an idea of where he wants to throw the ball, but the majority of his mental energy, his effort, is on throwing the crap out of the ball. It's on throwing it hard and ripping through that ball.
And you want to hit the outside corner with the pitch. If all you think about is, I'm going to hit that, aim it right there, hit it right there, that's the last place it's going to go. But when you have in the back of your mind where you're supposed to throw it, and then just say, I'm going to throw it as hard as I can right at that glove, and just say that, it'll be around there more often than not.
It's not 100% location. It's back of his mind location, but majority of his focus is on throwing it hard. And so that's where that kind of gets flipped when you try to aim small, miss small for a lot of pitchers, despite how intuitive it seems to sound on the surface and makes it for a good saying. So again, we're just trying to simplify, give more room for error. For guys that are really struggling, it's not just wherever the catcher is set up, blow it through the center of him. We actually will have that catcher set up middle. And it's like, hey, you're gonna throw middle fastballs this next outing. And what happens is they get in the zone more, their walk rate goes down, their strikeout percentage goes up, their average velocity goes up, because they're not even in the zone to begin with. So now at least, even if you are aiming middle and you're missing by 12 inches, at least you're on a corner. If you suddenly just start pumping fastballs down the middle every pitch and you gain your release point back, cool, split the plate in halves and start working inside outside. But again, once you've figured that out, now you just go back to this cue of wherever the catcher's set up, blow it down the center of the catcher. Try to knock the catcher over. Again, this has worked at the highest levels. MLB pitchers that I've worked with who have been struggling with consistency, this has worked for them. So this isn't some little league hack where it only works for some 12-year-old kid. This has worked at the highest levels. Simplify the approach and you'll be very surprised at what comes out of that. Another point to make with this cue is it's extremely helpful when you notice that a pitcher is cutting balls glove side. So a lot of times what happens is a pitcher has one delivery if they're throwing it middle, and then if they're throwing it arm side, they have another delivery. They try to release it a little further back or try to get it there with their hand. And then if they're throwing it glove side, they try to get it there by holding onto the ball a little bit longer. But they try to get it there by placing it with their release point, placing it with their arm. And last second, they try to change what they're doing with their arm. If you take the plate away, you take all that away, and you just focus on blowing it through the center of the catcher, you'll find that takes care of itself too. So you'll no longer see this cutting action because their stride is going one way and they're trying to get it there with their hand. Wherever the catcher is, their delivery is lined up through the center of the catcher. It's almost an imperceptible thing if you're out there watching their delivery, but their stride direction might be changing by half a degree depending on where the catcher is set up. They're not thinking about it, it's subconscious. But with that cue, suddenly the release point is the same. You're practicing one release point, one stride direction, one delivery, because your focal point is just the center of the catcher wherever he's set up. The catcher could go set up behind the lefty batter's box, and it's the same delivery. He could go set up behind the righty batter's box, it's the same delivery. Get rid of the plate, have the focal point be the catcher's body, and it cleans up a lot of those weird movement profiles when guys are cutting it glove side. Another reason that this cue is so powerful is the verbiage, is how we describe it. It's blow it through the center of the catcher. Another way of thinking of it is knock the catcher down. It's getting at this offensive versus this defensive approach. It's not trying to just get a pitch to a specific spot where if you miss that spot, you're worried that the hitter's just going to do damage, hit a home run if you miss your spot. That's a scared approach to pitching. That's a defensive approach to pitching. The offensive approach is knock this guy down, throw it through the catcher. And so the verbiage is really important in terms of what the intent behind the pitch is when you throw it and the conviction behind how you throw that pitch. So that's all I got for you guys today in this video. Again, wherever the catcher is set up, blow it through the center of the catcher. It's a very powerful, a very simple cue in its simplicity in terms of the results you'll be able to get. Give that a try. If it works for you, let me know down below. If you have some other cues that have worked for you in the past, again, let me know down below. We'd be happy to engage in that conversation, hear from you. And then again, if you're struggling in your own career, if you're a coach who has athletes who need some guidance, go ahead and reach out to us at contact@treadathletics.com. Shoot us an email. We read and respond to every single email. We're here to help, and we'd love to hear from you. See you guys in the next video.